Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, or My 2 Cent Nintendo/Gaming video for this week, for the week of July 11th to the 17th, though. Hopefully some of you out there are staying cool right now, because out here in Southern California, it's getting a little bit warm. Maybe not too warm as it normally would be during around October and all, where it's like, can sometimes get very warm indeed, but warm nevertheless though. So hopefully those folks out there are trying to stay cool in the best way that they possibly can and all that. But anyway, we got 4 stories to cover, including some more details on what Netflix might be doing in terms of maybe getting into gaming in some shape or some form though. A report out of a possibility of a sequel to one of my favorite games in 2018, Octopath Traveler, though. Issues regarding the possibility of Joy-Con drift in the upcoming OLED Switch, though. And WB responds to the claim about the possibility that NetherRealm Studios or Traveler.to Games or other studios might be sold following this merger, I think, between Discovery and Time Warner, though. And if you're interested in any of the stories interested in where I got the information about some of these stories, though, I'll have a link down in the description down below, assuming you watch this on YouTube, where I got a lot of this information. But before we get started, though, we'll get started with what I like to call the quick My 2 Cent stories that sort of caught my attention to some degree, but not going into a huge amount of details. The first one is that we learned that Nickelodeon will be doing a All-Star Brawl, which is basically their take on Smash Brothers, which stars a lot of the Nickelodeon characters like SpongeBob, Powder Toast Man, Reptar, Danny Phantom, and so forth, though. It'll be very interesting to see how this game runs on the Switch and whether or not it truly becomes a competitor to Super Smash Brothers or not. I'm leaning towards the more the unlikely category, but time will ultimately tell. We learned that Cruising Blast, another entry in the Cruising series, will be making its way onto the Nintendo Switch this September, and supposedly a physical version will happen, though. Still a little iffy about that game, though, but I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach and see how well that game does, though. We learned that a game called Super Robot Wars 30 will be released this October, though. As of right now, there are no plans for a Western release, but I believe the Asian Japanese version will have English subtitles, so if you decide you want to import this game, though, well, you can do that. There will be English subtitles in it, and given the fact that the Switch is region-free, which I think that's a very good thing indeed, though, it's definitely good for those who are thinking about importing this game if this is something on your radar, though. We also learned that Aulx has put up on their Persona site a 25th anniversary website, and they're looking at 7 new projects being teased, though. No word of what these projects could be. They could be video game related. They could be something completely different, though. It is possible, it is possible it could be video game related, considering that supposedly Persona 5 Gold did very well on PC, though. Maybe this will be bringing some of the Persona games actually to the Nintendo Switch and all that stuff. I really think Aulx has kind of dragged their feet in terms of bringing some of their games to the Nintendo Switch, considering how well the Switch is doing and all that stuff. But we'll see what happens when this when they announce some of these projects that they are teasing about. We're also learning that the upcoming Switch release of Sonic Colors Ultimate, though, apparently on the Nintendo Switch, it will run at 30 frames per second as opposed to 60 frames per second, though. While it's not something I'm losing complete sleep over, though, I would have liked it to run at 60 frames per second, even if it means lowering the resolution and all that stuff. I mean, 30 frames per second is okay as long as it's a stable 30 frames per second, though, but I will say 60 frames per second would have been a better choice, and I would have liked if they had made it run at 60 while maybe lowering the resolution, if that was even possible, though. We also learned that EA has announced FIFA 22 that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch, but just like the other version, it's the Legacy Edition. In other words, it's not going to be based on the versions that have been out right now and all that stuff. I never paid attention to the FIFA series, though, so this one will just be another skip and all that stuff. So I really don't care about this at all. I'm sure there's an audience for it. That's fine if you like the game though, but being this is EA though, it doesn't really interest me in any way. We also learned that Tencent is looking to acquire Crytek. They are the ones that create the Cryo engine and all. It'll be interesting to see if this happens, though. I understand not everyone is pleased with that. One even goes as far as basically making the claim that it means the Chinese government will use this for military purposes, but one analyst came out saying that the person who made this claim, though, is basically working for a German magazine that is the equivalent of the Sun, I think the UK, or the tabloid magazine, the Sun. So I'm not a fan of what Tencent's doing, but if this is coming from a site that is known to be a tabloid, though, I would still take that with a grain of salt, though. We also learned that supposedly Google Stadia will be introducing a 70% revenue to developers for those who are part of the Pro subscription, though. It will be interesting if that brings in more developers for Google Stadia or not, though. I mean, it's been a rough year for Stadia this year, especially when they shut down their first-party studios and all that. So we'll have to wait and see if this plan pays off for them or not. We also learned that basically the Sega's upcoming Lost Judgment series could be coming to an end. This has to be a dispute with the talent agency in which they're using the actor to play the character in the Lost Judgment game over something regarding the PC version, possibly with mods or something like that. So I really hope this is something that could be ironed out, though. I really wouldn't like to see this game come to an end, though. I'm starting to get into the Yakuza series and all that stuff, so it would be a real shame if this series, or at least this series, comes to an end. Maybe they could hire a new actor, maybe they could take a different approach if things fall apart, but I'm hoping that's not the case, though. We also learned that Ghostwire Tokyo has been delayed on the PS5, and that will be out early next year, which means that the time exclusivity for the PS5, once that up, means that it's possible that the Xbox One version, or the Xbox / the Microsoft version, will probably be delayed till maybe 2023, possibly, though. The site, one of the reasons is that it's health concerns and all that stuff, especially with whole COVID-19, including with the Delta variation now running loose, though. So a little disappointment, but understandable that you want to protect your staff and so forth, though. We haven't really heard much about this game, and when one of the, I think, creators or one of those persons left Tango Games, it does raise some concerns about this game in terms of its future and so forth. So we'll have to wait and see if they'll reach their new launch date for this game, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And last but certainly not least, though, out of nowhere, Valve announced basically a handheld console, which is called the Steam Deck, though. And judging by what it looks like, though, it definitely looks like a take on the Nintendo Switch and all that, though. We know they are scheduled for it to come out in the winter of December 2021. There will be 3 different versions, and this mostly has to do with the storage space in it, though. Could this be a Switch killer, though? It's possible that it could be the case, but at the same time, Valve has launched things like Steam Controller and Steam Link. It hasn't really done very well and all, and we've seen other competitors try to take on Nintendo and not always have the same kind of success. Look at the PlayStation Vita for example. But we'll have to wait and see, though. And if Steam Deck does take off and does become a success, though, and it starts eating through the profits eats through the Switch profits, though, it might force Nintendo's hand to consider maybe this is the time to release a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro. But right now, it's too early to say. We'll have to wait and see how Steam Deck will play out, especially with the whole chip shortage situation, not to mention the whole bots and scalper kind of situation. So we'll see if Valve can handle the situation better than what we've seen with, situation with, I think, with Nvidia, with Microsoft, and Sony, though. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with WB Games. And this one has to do with the fact that there have been reports lately, though, about whether or not WB might be selling some of their studios. Some of this ranging from Traveler.to Games to NetherRealm Studios and all. And this mostly has to do with the merger that they're having, I believe, with Discovery and all. So there has been some talks about whether that will truly happen or not. Well, they were asked about, the people at WB Games were asked about this, and they have basically given a response. In an article from, let me get that out, an article from GameRamp.to, they've addressed the rumors about NetherRealm Studios and Traveler.to Games possibly being sold during Warner Media's merger. According to the article, it reads that, quote, A few days back, rumors were flying around regarding the future of two game studios that were partnered with Warner Brothers, or WB Games. The two studios were NetherRealm Studios and Traveler.to Games, or TD Games, a pair of companies that had acquired by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment in the mid to late 2000. This rumor came from a series of documents that were citing during the ongoing AT&T and Warner Media split. A representative from Warner Brothers has recently provided a statement addressing these rumors. These documents were first reported by Windows Central Jez Cordon, apologize if I'm not saying it incorrectly, during an Xbox.to podcast, where Cordon citing that Warner Brothers Interactive considered the two companies not to be in their scope. Cordon has also admitted that the documents didn't have any specific date attached to them, so the validation of these claims could be outdated. However, with the statement provided by Warner Brothers representative to GameRamp, these statements are rendered obsolete, though. The original statement from Warner Media mentioned that all of its game studios will be brought along with the Warner Media Discovery merger. Before this rumor has popped up, the included studios were Rocksteady, NetherRealms, and Traveler.to Games. In a statement with GameRamp, the representative addressed the possibility of Warner Brothers Games selling some of these studios, reinforcing the company's early statement. NetherRealm Studios and Traveler.to Games will continue to remain part of Warner Brothers Games, and all are included in Warner Media Discovery merger, said the representative. The original speculation as to why NetherRealms and Traveler.to Games would be considered not within the scopes of Warner Media effort, but based on varieties of factors theorized by Cauldron. The recent Mortal Kombat film underperformed could have made the IP have less value, which is NetherRealm Studios' flagship IP. The original speculation about Traveler.to Games being sold had to do with the company's portfolio, comprisingly entirely of LEGO games. These projects likely came with a hefty license cost to be produced. However, as the merger with Discovery and Warner Media split with AT&T continues, fans can rest assured that these two studios will continue to be part of the Warner Brothers brand. So, judging by what GameRant is saying, though, it sounds like, though, that NetherRealms or Traveler.to Games are not going to be sold at this time. So, at least at this time. So, anyone thinking that maybe Microsoft might buy NetherRealms to work on Killer Instinct, doesn't seem like that's happening, though, at the moment, though. Now, could this change, though? It's a possibility. There could be, since this merger is ongoing, it's possible that things could change right away. So there is always that possibility. But for right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. So overall, though, it doesn't sound like NetherRealms or Traveler.to Games at this moment are up for sale at this time. But like I said, things could change during this merger, though, so anything can happen, but they are currently, right now, those studios are currently staying with WB Games. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with supposedly the OLED, the upcoming Nintendo Switch, the OLED Switch, could face the infamous Joy-Con drift issue. So we'll take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the Joy-Cons, or particularly with the situation surrounding the Joy-Cons with the upcoming OLED Switch, though. Now, I've had my Switch since 2017 and all, and I still like the system and all that stuff, though. As far as Joy-Con drift go, I will say, based on my time with the Nintendo Switch that I had for a long time, I really haven't experienced anything on the level of a Joy-Con drift kind of a situation. Now, that's not to say that that Joy-Con drift doesn't exist or anything like that. It's obviously clear we've seen videos of people experiencing this problem. Not to mention Nintendo dealing with current lawsuits as of right now with the whole situation with the Joy-Con drift. So just because I haven't really experienced it, though, doesn't mean I'm going to ignore the fact that there are others out there that might have actually experience Joy-Con drift, though. And one of the things that people have been hoping to see with this coming Switch OLED, especially for those who are thinking about picking the Switch OLED up, is whether or not Nintendo has addressed the Joy-Con drift issue. Well, it seems as though, based on some of the response Nintendo has made so far, it sounds like that may not be the case, though. In an article posted on by Nintendo Life, it reads, quote, Nintendo's latest Switch revision is just a few months away from release, with the super slick Switch OLED model hitting stores on October 8th. Naturally, it makes sense for gaming fans to hope that the new revision includes updated Joy-Con controllers that finally do away with the issue of Joy-Con drift, but Nintendo's latest statement on the matter isn't giving us any confidence. As we already know, Nintendo has previously announced that the Joy-Cons included in the Switch OLED are the same as the current controllers currently available. While this could be interpreted as being exactly the same, including everything from their appearance right down to the bothersome part that caused Joy-Con drift, it could also mean that the new controllers are simply compatible with all the same things, working the same way as the original, but with potential improved parts doing the job. Perhaps that second possibility is just wishful thinking, though. The Verge, along with Wire, Polygon, and GameStop, put the question of Joy-Con drift to Nintendo. The question dodging nature of the company respond probably telling us everything we need to know. And their comment was, Joy-Con controllers, configuration, functionalities did not change with the Nintendo Switch OLED model. The Verge says, we didn't ask about the configuration or functionality, as it was pretty clear from Nintendo's announcement that the controller will be the same. We asked about the drift, which was a reliable issue, and when we asked the question again, in an even clearer fashion, we were referring to the same statement. It's not exactly surprising, but if you're hoping for a new Joy-Con to finally be a bit more reliable, we're afraid you're probably out of luck. Now, some might argue that Nintendo may not want to comment, as they are basically doing, as I mentioned, as of right now, the so-called Joy-Con drift lawsuits and all that stuff. And while that might be possible, though, that certainly is not going to bring confidence to some folks out there who are thinking about, either getting the Switch OLED and also the fact that they haven't yet addressed the Joy-Con drift issue is somewhat a bit bothersome and all. You would think by now, especially given how well the Nintendo Switch has been selling so far, you would think Nintendo would be wanting to try to address this problem and all that stuff. But it seems as though this problem is still going to arise, and it sounds like that I wouldn't be surprised if I hear that someone who has a Switch OLED, or the new Switch, though, basically is going to experience Joy-Con drift and all. But like I said, though, some people are experienced, some people aren't, though. But the statement that Nintendo made, I will agree, doesn't bring a whole lot of confidence in terms of the whole Joy-Con drift issue, though. I am hoping at the very least, though, that should Nintendo do a Switch Pro or a new Nintendo Switch or Switch 2, though, which I do believe at some point Nintendo probably will do another Nintendo Switch, a more powerful one, though, given their current partnership with Nvidia, though. I am hoping at the very least the Joy-Con drift issue does truly become addressed, though, because there's going to be a point where it's like Nintendo doesn't want to deal with this headache again and again, not to mention the whole lawsuit issue and all that stuff. So overall, though, their response to the issue in terms of whether Joy-Con drift could emerge in the upcoming Switch OLED, it certainly doesn't bring a lot of comfort to some folks who are thinking about picking up this Nintendo Switch. Whether or not it will have a huge impact on when this new Nintendo Switch is released on October 8th or not, that remains to be seen, and all that. We'll have to wait and see, but I will say their statement in regards of the whole Joy-Con drift, this latest statement in regards to Joy-Con drift thing, isn't, well, let's just say, isn't very comforting, shall we say. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with Square Enix talking about the anniversary of Octopath Traveler with a possible tease of a sequel, though. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, I'm going to be taking a look at one of my favorite games of 2018, might be getting a sequel, and that is Octopath Traveler, though. Originally, this game was announced during when Nintendo had their presentation on, at the time when they revealed back in 2016, what is now known as the Nintendo Switch, though, and one of the games they showed off was basically a game called Octopath Traveler. At the time, it was called Project Octopath, though, and it was this interesting game that ran on the Unreal Engine 4, but also had what was basically this HD 2D visuals, though, and it basically was a game that was sort of hankered back to the old, JRPG back during the 16 and 8-bit era, though, and it definitely was a very fun and enjoyable game, and it became one of my personal favorite games of 2018, though. The game was basically be a time exclusive on the Nintendo Switch before making its way over to the PC, Stadia, and Game Pass, though, on the Xbox system, though. So for me, though, regardless of which system you own, whether it's a Switch, the Stadia, PC, or if you have Xbox via Game Pass, though, it is a game that I definitely would recommend, though. But since then, we haven't really got anything in regards of a sequel or anything like that, other than supposedly a prequel that sadly was only announced for mobile devices, though, which I would have loved to see if they had managed to make a prequel and have it come to the the consoles or PC, particularly the Nintendo Switch and all. Well, lately, though, Square Enix has been talking about the 3rd anniversary of basically Octopath Traveler, and they have hinted the possibilities of a sequel. In an article regarding Nintendo Life, though, it reads that, quote, Square Enix Octopath Traveler celebrates its 3rd anniversary this week, and while it's no longer a Nintendo Switch exclusive, it's still an amazing game and one would absolutely recommend trying if you haven't already. Same thing here. Would like I said, recommend it if you have, regardless if you have a Switch, PC, Stadia, or Game Pass, though. Anyway, moving along, though. It's got everyone wondering though if there's more adventures to come. While Square Enix hasn't mentioned previously how it's talked about sequel and what it should be like, and how it would likely take a bit more time, there has been no announcement just yet. That's why the latest anniversary tweet from the original game is so excited. As highlighted in translation by Nintendo enthusiasts, the message in the tweet below seemingly teased the possibility of a new adventure. While this could potentially refer to Project Triangle Strategy or certain other Octopath games, hopefully it's a reference to a proper Octopath Traveler follow-up for console. The tweet basically states, quote, Today, July 13th, is the 3rd anniversary of Octopath Traveler. Thank you all very much for your warm congratulations message. The development team will work hard so we can set off on a new adventure with you all, though. Now, this isn't the first time they've used the Octopath characters from Octopath Travelers to tease a game, though. During one of the anniversary, when they talked about how many units the game has shipped so far, they designed the characters in a way that looked very similar to the characters from the Bravely Default series, and that later would turn into Bravely Default 2 that would be later released for the Nintendo Switch. Good game as well, though. I would like to point that out, though. Now, is it possible that they could be working on a sequel? I mean, that's a possibility, though. I certainly would be down with a sequel, whether it's taking place in the same world as the first game did, or a brand new world that's probably has no connections to the first game. But I definitely would love to see an actual sequel happen, though. That would definitely be great, though. Should or if a sequel would happen, though, if that really would happen at all, I would definitely like to see it come to the Nintendo Switch. I think, to me, though, I feel the Switch is a great idea for JRPGs and RPGs in general, though. We'll have to wait and see if that does happen or anything like that. Right now, we know the development team is working on Project Triangle right now, which supposedly will be out sometime next year, so it's possible they have their hands tied at the moment, though. But should a sequel happen, though, I certainly would be happy about that, and I do hope that if that does happen, though, that they're also planning to bring it into the Nintendo Switch. One last thing, as I mentioned about Bravely Default, though, is that it turns out to be, though, that they are working, that a new Bravely Default game is in the works. However, before anybody gets excited about it, it turns out to be that this is not coming to the Nintendo Switch. Instead, it's coming for Android and ISO devices, though, and it's called Bravely Default Brilliant Light, though. But they do mention that the Bravely series has shipped more than 3 million units worldwide, both in physical and digital sales. So, great that a new Bravely Default game is in the works. Great that Square Enix is certainly paying attention to the series, but sadly, this one's for mobile devices, and I know not everyone has sort of a very iffy about mobile devices in general, though, or particularly, like iPhones, like phones, tablets, and so forth, though, and the whole gotcha mechanics too. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part, and this one has to do with apparently some bit more details about Netflix and their, excuse me, supposedly jumping into gaming, though. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Netflix, particularly with them seeming to be looking at entering into gaming. Now, when it comes to the streaming service or video streaming service, though, Netflix, I believe was the first one out there, although I think same with Hulu and Amazon Prime, though. And for most people will know Netflix of a lot of the shows they have produced, though. Some of them are ranging from Stranger Things to even the Castlevania series, a personal favorite of mine. Going through season 4 right now, to some of the animes that they have recently put out, such as Godzilla Singular Point and Ragnarok. If I'm saying the name correctly, I'm currently watching those, though. But as far as dipping their toes into video games, though, we haven't really seen much other than maybe Stranger Things making an appearance on like the Nintendo Switch or other systems and all that. But lately we've been hearing that Netflix may be trying to dip their toes even more, even providing video games from their service and all. In an article posted on from CNET, though, from July 15th, it reads that Netflix has flirted with video games and interactive before, but now it sees Fortnite and other gaming obsession as one of its main competitors for your FINITE attention. Apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly, though. It reads that, quote, Netflix is expected to expand into video games on its service at no extra cost within the next year, widening from its bedrock business of TV shows and movies as the world's biggest subscription video service, according to a report by Bloomberg. It would move Netflix into a major entertainment segment, gaming, that it has called out as some of its stiffest competitors for your attention. Netflix confirmed Wednesday that it has hired a former Oculus Electronic Arts and ZYNGA executive as Vice President of Game Development, a spokeswoman declined the comment beyond his hiring. The games will be available as though they're a new genre on the surface, and Netflix doesn't plan to charge extra for them, according to Bloomberg, citing an unnamed person familiar with the matter. Netflix hinted recently that it would be interested in stepping up its pursuit of gaming. The company has flirted with games before through its interactive choose-your-own adventure-style program like Bandersnatch, if I'm saying the name correctly though, I apologize if I'm not saying it correctly, and through some licensing and merchandising partnership. But in April, Netflix chief operator and producer officer signaled that Netflix interest in gaming may be advancing. We're trying to figure out what all these different ways we can deepen that fandom, and certainly games are a really interesting component of that. Greg Pete said at the Times, "There's no doubt that games are going to be an important form of entertainment and an important modality, modality, to deepen that fan experience. As Netflix has grown to more than 207 million subscribers worldwide, it has long pointed out its competitors extending beyond the traditional TVs and movie companies that go head-to-head with it. The company has repeatedly called out gaming phenomenons like Fortnite, as well as user-generated video powerhouse YouTube, as some of its toughest competitors for massive collection of entertainment hours they command worldwide." Now, over at Forbes, though, one of the writers has certainly thinks that there's a lot that still raises some questions, though. According to the article, it reads that, quote, "Yesterday, reports revealed that Netflix is hiring former EA VR mobile executive to head up a newfound gaming division after years of claiming that games like Fortnite were the biggest rival, sucking away screens, even if the former media are disparate." Or DISPARATE. The idea that Netflix is going to have a game selection which raises all manners of questions about what it's going to look like in practice and what it will actually be competing against. And some of the questions they ask are, will it be streaming or download? Controller support will cost extra. Will there be any AAA games? Although this person seems to be the answer is going to be no, though, and that the format of these games must be in if we're taking touchscreen and mobile-like games, though. There raises questions of the App Store, particularly with Apple's policies, which I'll be honest with you, I do think some of Apple's policies are stupid. How will microtransaction work, and how much of a budget is Netflix devoting to this? So there certainly is a lot of questions about Netflix taking this approach. Now, could it succeed, though? It's a possibility, though. We'll have to wait and see if it truly does become a success or not, though. But at the same time, it's also possible it could fail as well, though. I mean, we've seen competitors have tried before, and some have continued to struggle, though. I mean, we've seen the situation with Google Stadia in a way. That has sort of kind of struggled a little bit, though. Amazon Lunar somewhat is also struggling and still in beta as we speak, though. Well, we've also seen stuff like Microsoft with xCloud, and that seems to be getting a better response because it ties into Game Pass and all that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Netflix does, though. So time will tell. We'll have to wait and see what happens next year and all. And I mean, it could do well, it could flop. So I'm taking basically more like a wait and see approach at this time. So overall, though, it will be really interesting to see what approach Netflix takes in terms of entering into gaming, though. Whether it becomes a success or not remains to be seen. So we'll have to see if it does become a success or if it starts to struggle, like we've seen with, say, Stadia to a certain extent, and Amazon Luna as well. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about WB Games not selling NetherRealms and Telltale Games, or TT Games, though? Do you think this is the end of the story, though? Do you think those studios will not be up for sale? Or do you think after this merger is completed that WB Games might put those studios up for sale after all. What are your thoughts about the whole comment in regards of the Joy-Cons for the upcoming OLED Switch, though? Are you worried about the possibility that we could see Joy-Con drift in the OLED Switch, considering it's using the same Switch model as, say, using the same kind of Joy-Con model as the Joy-Cons used in the current Switch, though? Is this an issue, or do you don't see it really as a big issue at all, though? What are your thoughts about this tease of a possibility of a sequel to Octopath Traveler, though? Do you think Square Enix should do an actual sequel to it, though? Do you think if a sequel does happen, do you think it should continue from where the first game left off, or do you think it should be a brand new adventure with a new set of cast and characters and all? And what are your thoughts about Netflix possibly looking like that's going to enter into gaming next year, though? Do you think Netflix has a chance? Do you think this could take off in any way? Or do you think they're going to have a hard time with it, and do you think they're going to struggle like they did, like what we're seeing somewhat with Stadia and Amazon Lunar? Or do you think that eventually Netflix is going to drop this whole gaming thing altogether, though? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, so if you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, wish you all a good day then. Bye!